20. The next few days flew by, riddled with anxiety. And yet they were happy ones too. I taught Prince Yanming to hold a sword and let him trounce me each time we sparred. He showed me how to fold paper animals, and we sang silly songs that we made up together. When he discovered that I knew just one story of his beloved dragons, he gathered his books, and together we read of how the dragons saved the merfolk from sea monsters, how they purified the waters when a swarm of venomous jellyfish tainted the ocean. It was little wonder their absence had left such a void in the eastern sea. And when he flung his arms around my neck, squeezing me with his soft arms, a warmth bloomed inside me. He slipped through the wall around my heart, becoming the childhood companion I never had, the sibling I never knew I wished for. All too soon, the day of our ruse arrived. I sat in the room with Wenxi as two palace attendants fussed over me, assisting with my transformation into Lady Anmei. "Could you try to act demure and gentle?" Wenxi suggested. "Take smaller steps when you walk. Your gaze should be softer. Lady Anmei is a delicate flower, so could you try not to be—" "A thorn?" I bit out, my temper frayed thin. For the past hour, he had been lecturing me on the behavior I should emulate. I shot him a deceptively sweet smile. "Perhaps you should dress as Lady Anmei yourself, since you seem so well-versed in her mannerisms." A choked sound erupted from one of the attendants, which she quickly gulped back. Wenxi's eyes curved with humor, yet he continued as though I had not spoken. "Try to appear a little afraid or nervous. Not everyone can be as sure of themselves as you are." I swung around, dislodging an attendant's attempt to fix a gold flower to my hair. "Since I met you, I've been afraid more times than in all my years before. Who wouldn't be? Getting speared by darts, scalded by fire, attacked by monsters?" "If you were afraid, you kept your wits about you, most of the time." He sat down and unrolled a scroll crafted of bamboo strips, each crammed with tiny characters and bound with silk. Soon he was engrossed in his reading like he had forgotten I was there. His indifference bothered me more than it should. I glanced into the mirror, a stranger gazing back at me. The attendants had drawn my brows into delicate arches, brushed my cheeks with rose powder, and colored my lips a light coral. My hair was pulled into smooth coils, adorned with jeweled flowers from which strands of turquoise beads cascaded. The lilac silk of my dress was embroidered with colorful shells and seagrass, a crimson sash tied around my waist. An open coat of azure satin flowed to my feet, encased in slippers of gold brocade. The attendants flattered me, telling me I looked beautiful before they left the room. "Are you ready?" A note of impatience rang in Wenxi's voice as he turned to me. In the sudden quiet, I found myself holding my breath. "You look different," he said finally, "though such as you does not need all this gilding." "Gilding?" I was torn between laughter and mortification. "Might I remind you this was your idea?" He shrugged. "A good one, but I did not say I liked it." It was no compliment, yet the intensity of his stare sent a tingling rush through me, like a cool breeze gliding over my skin. Before I could reply, he picked up the scroll and resumed his reading. As I rose to find a book of my own, I stumbled, tripping over the hem of my coat. Wenxi shot up to catch me, his fingers closing around my arms. Light kindled in his eyes, my heart racing like I had run a long way. But I had learned such feelings were dangerous, and the wounds they could inflict more painful than those from a blade. I pulled away, averting my gaze. His hands dropped to his side, an awkward silence descending over us. Fortunately, Prince Yanming arrived soon after. At the sight of me, he burst into laughter, dousing my brief pride in my appearance. "You're wearing Lady Anmei's clothes!" "She is Lady Anmei for today," Wenxi reminded him sternly. "Remember what your brother told you, Your Highness." The mirth vanished from Prince Yanming's face as he nodded, his body shaking a little. Of course he was afraid, knowing he and his loved ones were in peril. Crouching down, I clasped his shoulder. "Don't worry," I told him. "It's a little dangerous, but you'll be safe. Your brother is waiting in the forest with his guards. and we won't let anything happen to you." His teeth gnawed his lip. "What about you? I don't want anything to happen to you either." "Nothing will," I promised, wiping the sweat from my palm before taking his hand. "I will take care of us." An odd look crossed Prince Yenming's face. "But you're not a very good fighter. I always beat you, and I only just started learning." Wenjie snorted while I glared at him. "Don't worry," I told Prince Yenming, his brow still wrinkled in a frown. "I'm better with the bow." Together, we walked in silence from the palace to the shore. A large tent had been erected there for our use, far from the shoreline, a visible target for Governor Renyu's forces, and one which I hoped would prove irresistible. Once we were inside and the flap had been lowered, I set about concealing weapons, bows, and quivers of arrows around the tent. Afterward, we took a long stroll on the beach, the noon sun beating down upon us. The residents had been escorted to safety, leaving disguised celestial soldiers in their place, while Prince Yenxi and his army hid in the forest that bordered the beach. I did not let go of Prince Yenming's hand as I scanned our surroundings for any sign of danger. Yet there was none, the sea tranquil and clear. Soon after we returned to the tent, Prince Yenming fell asleep, perhaps exhausted from the strain of the day. I covered him with a blanket, watching his chest rise and fall, the serenity of his face striking me deep. I would keep him safe, I promised silently, no matter what happened today. Looking around for something to distract myself, I found some books and a weiqi board set up in a corner, its black and white stones gleaming invitingly. But I was in no mood to do either. Waiting to be attacked shredded my nerves raw, unlike Wenjie, who sat in a chair reading his scroll with unflappable calm. An urge gripped me to disrupt his concentration. "When did you come to the Celestial Kingdom?" I asked. "A while ago." Undeterred by his curt response, I pressed on. "Which of the 4 seas are you from?" He raised his head then, fixing me with a pointed stare. "Why the sudden interest?" I sighed. "There isn't much I can do here other than talk. Unfortunately, I don't have much choice for company." "Why don't we talk about you?" he suggested. "Where are you from?" "The Southern Sea." Caught unaware, I said the first thing that entered my mind, what I had been schooled to say before. "The Southern Sea," he repeated slowly, setting his scroll down. "And yet, you've never seen the ocean before." My face flamed. How fortunate that it was covered under a layer of powder. "I left when I was a child and don't remember anything. What of your family?" I was eager to shift the conversation away from me. He was silent for a while. "I have kin in the Western Sea, but I haven't seen them for a long time. My responsibilities keep me well engaged." "Do you miss them?" I asked, thinking of my mother. "Some more than others," he replied with a tight smile. He picked up his scroll again, a sign that our conversation was over. I had finally met someone as reticent as me. Was he unwilling to speak of his family because the Western Sea had sided with the demon realm in the war? Perhaps it was prudent not to remind others of it. Though the Celestial Kingdom was now at peace with the 4 seas, immortal memories were long. I opened my mouth to ask another question, then hesitated. Not everyone's past was a path through sunlit fields. We each had our own corners that we preferred to leave in the shadows. The sun dropped lower in the sky, and still there was no sign of the merfolk. Had our plan failed? Was Governor Renyu too cunning to fall for our ploy? "How much longer must we stay here? Can't we leave now? Maybe the bad governor won't come." Prince Yenming had been restless since he awoke, unused to being confined. I glanced at Wenjie. "Shall we take another walk outside? To reassure them that we're still here?" "They could be waiting until nightfall to attack. Merfolk are adept at seeing in the dark," he said. "What if we spread the word that Prince Yenming is leaving soon? The guards and attendants can make a pretense of the preparations while we walk near the water. After that, His Highness should be escorted to safety." Our danger increased with every passing moment. Although it would be better to provoke the merfolk into action than let their plan unfold as they wanted. He nodded, calling in the guard to relay his instructions. Before we left the tent, he passed me a small dagger with a silver hilt. "Keep this on you at all times." I took it, tucking it into my sash, concealed beneath my coat. It was more an ornament than a weapon, yet this was all I had to defend myself. No, I reminded myself. I still had my powers, and even with my bare hands, I was not helpless. The ocean was restless now, its gray-green waters turbulent. Foaming waves crested high before crashing against the shore. Breaking free of my grasp, Prince Yanming ran ahead of me. I chased after him into the water, drenching my slippers and skirt. An inky shadow fell over us as though night had fallen, cold dread congealing in the pit of my stomach. Towering above us was an enormous octopus, blocking out the sun itself. Giant tentacles, each twice the length of a grown man, lashed out, splashing water and flooding the beach. Riding upon the creature was a warrior in pearlescent armor that reached his knees and left his arms bare, a crown of red coral branches woven into his hair. Around his neck gleamed a large pendant, a gold disc encircling a glowing yellow stone. In one hand he held a spear, and in the other a shield studded with vicious spikes. His eyes were as pale as a glacier, and when they locked on me, I froze. "Governor Ren Yu," Wenshi shouted in warning as the governor's lips curled into a smirk. The octopus! It was almost upon Prince Yanming. Dashing deeper into the water, I swept him up, clutching him tightly as we raced from the rising tide. A tentacle lashed out behind me, slicing my calf. I choked back a cry, forcing myself onward through the churning current as the stinging seawater stripped the blood from my wound. Just as we reached the shore, the water foamed with thousands of quivering jellyfish, poisoned stingers coating their translucent tentacles. The merfolk rode the crests of the swelling waves, roaring as they stormed the beach. With an answering shout, Prince Yanxi's men surged from the forest. The celestial soldiers threw off their disguises, their armor gleaming in the late afternoon light. A sudden tension ripped through the air, shimmering and flickering with the energies of the warriors as the armies collided. Bolts of fire and ice hurtled into hastily erected shields. Swords struck in a thunderous clash, ringing through the billowing sand. Prince Yanming trembled in my arms as we sprinted to the tent. But when agonized screams erupted from behind, I halted, whirling around. My heart plunged at the sight. The giant octopus was wrapping its tentacles around celestial soldiers, hurling them into the ocean, where venomous jellyfish swarmed over them, dragging them beneath the waves. Wenshi shouted for them to move to higher ground, but his words were lost in the chaos. His energy erupted in a blaze of light, solidifying into a towering shield along the shoreline. Yet the area was too wide. His magic spread too thin. Flanked by several warriors, Governor Ren Yu raised his hand, blue light streaking forth to strike the barrier. Once, twice, and then again, until at last Wenshi's shield shattered. I would have darted for a weapon, but if I discarded my pretense, the governor might sense a trap. The merfolk pressed on, eagerly now, as our soldiers scattered like wind-blown leaves. Wenshi was shaking. I had never seen him look so distraught, so anxious, furious, and frustrated. "Go," I urged him. "You don't need to stay with us. I'll watch over Prince Yanming." He stilled, his eyes fixed upon the carnage. "What will you do?" "I'll stay in the tent. It will be safe there." Without waiting for his answer, I stalked away with Prince Yanming. Several soldiers waited inside the tent to escort him to safety, but when they tried to take him from me, he clutched me tighter. "Are you coming?" His voice shook. I brushed his cheek with my knuckle. "Your Highness needs to leave now. Your brother is waiting for you. I'll join you soon." "Do you promise?" A heartbeat of hesitation before I nodded. I hated lying to him, but if the governor found this place deserted, he might leave before we could apprehend him. Every moment I bought with this farce increased our chance of capturing him. My heart thudded as I watched Prince Yanming and the soldiers slip through the back of the tent, disappearing into the safety of the forest. Only then did a little of my tension ease. I sat down to wait, agitated at doing nothing, while outside, blood soaked the sand. We had hoped to trap Governor Renyu, but he caught us unaware by the ferocity of his attack and the sea monsters under his command. Tossing off my sodden coat, I pulled out a bow and quiver, placing them on the table within reach. Part of me wanted to clap my palms over my ears to drown the clash of steel, the screams and groans. How much longer could I bear this? When a loud cry pierced the air, I dashed to the entrance, stumbling to a stop as the silhouette of a limp form slumped against the tent walls. The flap lifted. A figure loomed in the entrance. I took a step back, my body stiff with anxiety. "You must be Lady Anmei." Governor Renyu greeted me with a mockingly low bow. "Rumors of your charms were not exaggerated." His aura filled the air, pressing around me in the confined space. Strong, to be sure, yet wavering as an inconstant tide. Was his grip on his power unsteady? I had no time to ponder as he entered, towering above me, the parts of his body I could see corded with muscle. His cold stare sent a shudder through me, as did the cruel slant of his mouth, and the blood sprayed across his cheek. I darted for the bow on the table, but he swept it out of my reach and tossed it outside with a bark of laughter. "Do you know how to use it?" I shook my head, shrinking away as my fingers inched toward the concealed dagger. If I had the bow, there would already be an arrow through his chest. But as he had the advantage for now, I would not drop my disguise. As long as he believed I was Lady Anmei, he might not harm me. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to draw his attention from my hands. "You have nothing to fear. All I want is the little prince. Help me, and you will be well rewarded." His gaze slid across the tent. "Where is he?" His voice was rich, deep, melodious, the most beautiful one I had ever heard. My suspicion of him melted away, replaced by warm admiration. Governor Renyu appeared honorable and kind. Why had he been so viciously maligned? The disc around his neck gleamed brighter, like the eyes of a serpent aglow in the dark. The image jarred me, my instincts prickling in warning. I blinked, tearing myself from the tantalizing promise of his words, forcing myself to listen to the screams outside. In a flash, it struck me how he held such sway over the merfolk. There was magic in his voice which compelled others to believe him. Had it come from the shining pendant around his neck? Whatever it was, it had almost worked on me, even overcoming my hostility. Little wonder that the merfolk were so loyal to him, willing to risk themselves to protect him, to fight for him on the mere promise of his words and illusion of his honor. I had never encountered such power before, though. Was he a demon? One of the dreaded mind talents? I dared not let my fear show. He expected my admiration, my obedience, that I would yield to his will as a blade of grass to the wind. Widening my eyes to appear guileless, I gestured to the bed where Prince Yanming had napped earlier. The covers were bunched up over the top, giving the semblance of a small body beneath. "He's sleeping," I said. His mouth curved into a vicious smile. "Once the Eastern Sea is mine, I'll dispose of the brat, and we'll rule together. The other kingdoms will fall to me too, and you'll be the queen of the 4 seas." He stretched out his hand, promising what he believed I wished to hear. Anger flared in me to hear him speak so of Prince Yanming and his despicable plans, yet I was glad for it to bolster my wavering will. I stared at the yellow gem against his chest. This close, a strange power emanated from it, raising the hairs on my skin. "What makes you think you'll win?" "The merfolk obey my every command, as do the sea creatures. You have nothing to fear with me by your side." His words spilled through me like liquid honey, even as my insides recoiled. How tempting it was to agree with him, to earn his approval. No, I could not succumb. I could not end up one of his unthinking minions. My nails dug into my palms as I channeled a surge of energy into my ears to seal off my hearing. Cloaked in sudden silence, I could barely hear my own breathing. My gut twisted at the thought of fighting him this way, but I feared more falling under his control. I fixed my gaze upon him. There would be no telltale rustle of his step or the whistle of his sword to alert me, a risk, though a necessary one. As he moved toward the bed, I grabbed the dagger from my sash and hurled it at him. He swung aside, the blade slicing his cheek. Without a pause, he lunged forward, tearing the covers from the bed, snarling to find it empty. At once, he swung to me, but I darted for the nearest bow, drawing and releasing an arrow in the same heartbeat. With a sweep of his shield, he batted it to the ground. I shot one after another in a frantic pace until my fingers stung from the grooves riddled across their tips. He was quick, though, evading each one with startling speed. My elbow slammed into a shelf as I groped for another arrow. As his knuckles whitened around his spear, I flung up a shield just as his weapon slammed against it. My last arrow sank into his shoulder. I dove for a new quiver, so intent upon it that I did not sense the shift in the air until something stabbed my calf, spreading like wildfire. 2 silver needles protruded from my leg, pinning the silk of my dress to my flesh, stained with the greenish liquid I had seen once before. Sea scorpion venom, rushing through my veins. My shield was no more, dispelled, leaving me as helpless as a rabbit snared in a trap while the hunter stalked ever closer. His lips peeled back, stretching wide, yet all I heard was a faint humming. I loosened the seal over my ears until the faintest whisper slid through. All I had left to slow him with were words. "Coward," I hissed, trying to delay the inevitable end, to goad him to rashness. "Fight me without such tricks!" "Losers complain, and winners, well, winners have better things to do." He spoke with a smug complacency that sent fear shooting down my spine. The pull in his voice was still there, but fainter now. I could barely hear it. I reached for my powers, struggling to steady myself against the searing agony of the poison. The gem around his neck glowed like sun-struck gold. As I stared at it, I asked, "Your pendant, is that how you're controlling the merfolk?" My voice sounded as though it came from far away. "Such magic is despicable." "Despicable? Because you cannot wield it? Because you fear it?" He cocked his head to one side, though I did not think he expected an answer. "The merfolk have always harbored such suspicions against the sea immortals. I merely lit the spark of their prejudice, nudged their will to mine. How is this any different from holding a sword to your enemy's throat? Why should one victory be deemed honorable and the other not?" "It's not the same," I ground out. "You've taken away their freedom to choose, to judge on their own, to compel them to acts they might rather die than commit." I fixed him with a scornful stare, even as I shrank away inside. "But no enchantment is unbreakable. You'll pay when they break free." "Death is the only release for those under my control." A cruel light gleamed in his eyes. "There were a few who angered me with their incompetence, others who were too difficult to dominate. Just before they died, such clarity shone in their faces, rage too, that they had been taken for fools. It made their end all the sweeter, as yours will be." His spear flashed. Fighting through the pain, I seized my powers, but then his fist slammed into my temple. Pain engulfed me, my energy dispersing. If my feet could move, I would have fled, but I could not even choke out a scream through the crushing numbness which sank over me. My arrows. I still had them. While my legs were rooted fast, my arms were still free, at least for now, until the poison spread. I grasped around my back, fumbling inside the quiver. As I grasped one, the governor snatched it from me and snapped it into 2, grinding the metal tip against my palm until he drove it through my flesh. The agony stripped my mind bare. I could not cry out, I could hardly breathe. With a malicious sneer, he wrenched the bow from my grasp, throwing it beyond my reach. Picking up his fallen spear, he pressed it to my chest, exerting just enough pressure to pierce my skin with its venomous tip. Blood blossomed on the silk like a crimson hibiscus unfurling its petals. I gasped then, my upper body convulsing, before it froze. From the curl on his lips, I knew he relished my suffering. My heart recoiled, stabbed by regret. Would I ever see my mother and Pinga again? Li Wei's face flashed through my mind, and oddly Wen's too. Such scorching pain raced through my veins, swifter now, my breathing turning harsh and ragged. I shut my eyes to block out the horror of being so utterly at his mercy, weaponless, poisoned, and trapped. No, I told myself furiously. I still had my training. I still had my wits. I still had my magic. I fought for calm, grinding my jaws until they ached. My power flew into my grasp, a gale surging into the tent and flinging him against the ground. Something fell from his head, his crown of red coral, the branches breaking into shards. His eyes blazed with shock, then rage. He raised his hand, gleaming with his own magic. But I was relentless, reckless even, as I hurled a stream of enchantments his way, not daring to allow him a chance to retaliate. Wild gusts lashed him, coils of air bound him, bolts of flame singed his skin before they were doused. If I were not incapacitated, rooted to the spot, I might have collapsed from the strain. Never had I fought so, relying on my magic alone. Teacher Daoming's warning not to drain my energy rang through my head, yet if I stopped, I would die. There would be no mercy from him, no second chance. Backed against the tent walls, the governor deflected each blow until sweat poured from his brow and his breathing was as labored as mine. A fierce pride gripped me, that I was no longer the prey he had stalked. Someone appeared in the entrance. Wenshi, covered in blood, sand, and dirt, his face taut with exhaustion, or was it fury? As Governor Runyu staggered to his feet, Wenshi charged at him, sword slamming against spear. The governor's mouth worked furiously, uttering words I could not make out. What was he saying? What if Wenshi fell under his control? His pendant! My cry dissolved into a broken whisper. I had not the strength for more. Fear clutched at me that it was not enough, that he did not hear me, and my bow was too far away, my magic almost drained. My hand throbbed with pain, there all along, yet overshadowed by the agony raging through my body. I glanced down to find the broken shard of arrow still embedded in my palm. A muffled crash sounded as Wenshi flung the governor into a shelf. He sprang back up, his pendant gleaming brighter. A chill swept through me that any moment now he might unleash its power. I could not move, not even to twitch my finger. The venom had paralyzed me entirely. Yet I could not let Wenshi fall under the governor's control. Gasping for air, I scraped my energy to form a current of wind, slender but swift and strong, which tore the arrow shaft from my flesh and hurled it at the governor. It struck his pendant, slamming against the stone. The yellow gem cracked, the light fading from it. Governor Renyu's mouth opened in a rage-filled shout, but it was as whispers to my ears. I was afire with pain, numbed to all else. Wenshi whirled with deadly grace, his foot colliding into the governor's side. As the governor staggered back, Wenshi's blade slashed across his ribs, the pearlescent scales of his armor splintering. The governor's mouth rounded as a strange expression crossed his face. Was it shock? Disbelief that his enchantment had failed? Whatever it was, I was glad for it, a vicious satisfaction flaring in me. Governor Renyu was panting, his movements growing more frantic as he flung off Wenshi's brutal blows. He was careless now, reeking of desperation. As Wenshi raised his arm, the governor flung his spear at him, but Wenshi spun to the other side, plunging his blade smoothly through Governor Renyu's armor right through his ribs. He lunged forward, driving his sword deeper until it was buried to the hilt, its tip sliding from the governor's back, silver coated in crimson. Wenshi's face was twisted into a feral expression as he tore his sword free. Blood sprayed in the air as Governor Renyu's body lurched, a wet wheeze slipping from his mouth as he staggered back. His hand fumbled over his gaping wound as his blood, so much of it, streamed through his fingers. The governor crumpled then, his head slamming against the ground, his eyes rolling up, his limbs twitching, before all went still. Dead. He was dead. There was no pity in me for him, nor was there joy, just a bone-deep relief that it was over, that we were alive. Wenshi dropped his sword, rushing to me. He gripped my shoulders, his eyes widening at the sight of my injuries. When his lips moved, I strained to listen. "Where are you hurt? Why aren't you moving?" Despite the comfort of his touch, a coldness spread over me as though I was buried under a layer of snow. My vision blurred as I gazed up at him, the last thing I saw before the darkness claimed me. 21. Cracking my eyelids apart, I squinted at the brightness. Sunlight streamed through the windows, mingled with a salt-laced breeze. My body was heavy with that limpness which comes after a long slumber, each movement a struggle. I shivered, cold except for the warmth over my hand. A strong grip, but whose? Someone sat beside me, the face a blur as I blinked to clear my vision. I did not mind the touch. It was a comfort through the memories which curled at the edge of my consciousness, of blood, of pain, and terror. I jerked upright. My eyes locked onto Wench's, softer than I had ever seen them before. My skin heated as I tugged my hand away. How long had he been here? How long had I slept? I swung my legs over the side of the bed, trying not to wince from the ache. He frowned. "You've been asleep for days. Take it slow." "I feel fine." Despite my bravado as I lurched to my feet, I was lightheaded, swaying where I stood. Pride alone kept me from sinking back down on the bed as I gripped the wooden frame to steady myself. He slipped an arm around me, his hold light yet firm as he helped me to the nearest chair. "Prince Yenming, is he safe? What happened?" My questions fell out in a rush.
"You'd do better to worry about yourself next time."
He lifted the teapot and poured out a stream of reddish-brown tea into a porcelain cup, pushing it toward me. Pu'er. I inhaled its rich and earthy fragrance before taking a long sip, the tea sliding down my throat with a reviving warmth.
"Prince Yenming is well, and has been demanding to see you."
He paused to refill my cup.
"After Governor Renyu's death, the merfolk surrendered. Their punishment is yet to be determined."
Memories flashed through my mind of the sick pleasure the governor had taken in tormenting me, his haunted expression as Wench's sword plunged through his chest, the crimson blood which had pooled around his body, sunken in the terrible stillness of death. I was glad for it, I told myself, even as my stomach churned. The governor would have killed me as viciously as he could. But I still found little triumph in this moment. And though he had gone, the scars of his deceit remained, the lives he had stolen, those irrevocably destroyed. The merfolk may not be to blame. The governor had a strange power that helped him gain their trust. His voice, his pendant. I frowned, trying to make sense of my fragmented memories. He used it on me, too. His face darkened.
"How did you resist?"
"I sealed off my hearing," I grimaced. "Stupid, perhaps. It made fighting him much harder, but I couldn't think of anything else." His hand clenched on the table until his knuckles were white around the joints.
"Fortunately, the governor's powers were weak coming from the pendant, as you guessed. A true mind talent could have bent even your will in seconds. Once in thrall, he would have held you till your end or his." An echo of the governor's boast, rousing anew my fears from yesterday. As though sensing my distress, he reached across the table and touched my arm. "I should not have left you. You wouldn't have been so hurt if I had stayed."
"If you had stayed, maybe we'd all be bowing to Governor Renyu now," I added gravely. "This is not your fault. My safety is in my own care, and I certainly had no intention of letting him kill me. I would have made him regret his attempts. Eventually."
"I have no doubt that you would have."
He smiled as he leaned forward, inspecting my face.
"If you're well enough, we should leave soon. I've already sent the others back. However, Prince Yenshi wants to see you before we go. He's in the audience chamber this morning."
I rose, feeling a little steadier as I smoothed down my pale green robe, only now having the presence of mind to check if I was appropriately dressed. Such plain garments might raise brows from the impeccably attired Eastern Sea Court, but after having almost died, I had greater concerns on my mind. The moment we entered the hall, Wenshi was called aside by an Eastern Sea general. I kept to the outskirts of the room, searching for Prince Yenshi, finally finding him deep in conversation with another immortal. The stranger was turned away from me, yet the way he stood and how his dark blue brocade robe sat across his shoulders were oddly familiar. When Prince Yenshi noticed me, he inclined his head. As his companion swung around, his dark eyes pierced mine. It was Li Wei, the last person I expected to see here. A quiver rippled through my heart. Dread or joy, I could no longer tell apart the emotions he evoked in me. But he was dear to me still, no matter how I wished he were not. Li Wei spoke briefly to Prince Yenshi before coming toward me. Conscious of those watching us, I bowed to him with all due ceremony. "Rise," he said in a strained voice. I met his gaze without a flicker of emotion, grateful for Teacher Daoming's training, that I could now slip on this mask despite the turmoil which raged within. "Why are you here? When did you arrive?"
3 days ago."
He lifted the sky drop tassel by his waist. The gem was clear, the silver flecks swirling in its depths.
"When it turned red, I rushed here as quickly as I could."
I clutched the stone by my waist, the twin to his. A wild urge gripped me to toss it away, to bury it with our past, like the temptation to rip out a scab before the wound had healed. Why did I wear it? Why cling to this remembrance? Sentimental fool, I scolded myself, forcing my grip to loosen.
"When I got here, the battle was already over. You were unconscious, blood streaming from your wounds as Captain Wenshi carried you from the tent. I feared the worst."
He stilled as though struggling with himself.
"You were gravely injured. Prince Yenshi had you brought to the palace so the royal healers could extract the venom from your body. Any more would have killed you."
He leaned toward me now, taking my hand in his, our palms brushing, the tips of his fingers pressing against mine. Taken aback, I stilled. Heat sparked against my skin as his power coursed through my body. My mind cleared, a reviving strength spreading through me, but I pulled away. While he was a healer skilled in life magic, the thought of his energy mingling with mine aroused too many unsettling emotions. "Thank you. You don't need to do that." I groped for something else to say, anything in the awkward silence which descended upon us. "What were you discussing with Prince Yenshi?" His expression turned somber, his eyelids lowering.
"A grave matter. Archer Fei Mao, whom you know, recently reported a strange affliction. Since the battle with Xiangliu, he found difficulties wielding his magic. We believe a piece of dark ore wedged in his armor suppressed his powers."
"How is he now?" I asked, concerned.
"Once it was removed, he recovered."
"What metal is this? How did it get there?"
"No one has come across anything like it before. Archer Fei Mao suspects it came from Shadow Peak, a crevice which he fell into. Our scouts found traces of the ore there, but nothing beyond remnants."
"Did someone take it?" A chilling thought.
He nodded tersely. "It appears to have been mined. Such a thing could be catastrophic in the wrong hands. I've warned Prince Yenshi to be vigilant and to alert us should he discover anything."
He fell silent. In the sudden quiet, my senses sharpened. How close we stood, speaking with the same ease we always had before. There it was still, that unseen cord wound around our hearts, frayed yet intact, despite my attempts to snap it. Perhaps it was a bond which could never be severed, rooted in our friendship before our ill-fated love. I did not want this, for my spirits to leap and plummet in the same instant, that gaping hollow in my chest to reopen. But my near death was a blunt reminder that life was precious, precarious even for an immortal. And right now, I felt more alive than I had in months. His scent flooded me with memories from our time in the courtyard of eternal tranquility. I could almost hear the rumbling from the waterfall. My fingers curled as I stepped back from Li Wei, retreating a safe distance as cool air rushed between us. His mouth opened to speak, but then he glanced up as someone approached.
First Archer.
It was Prince Yanxi, along with Wenshi, whose face seemed hewn from stone as he bowed to Li Wei. I would have bowed too, except Prince Yanxi raised his hand to dismiss the formalities.
I'm glad you have recovered. My family owes you a debt of gratitude for risking yourself to protect my brother. Should you ever need our aid, it would be our honor to repay you.
His gracious words touched me. There is no debt, Your Highness. Governor Renyu's ambitions stretched beyond here to the four seas. If left unchecked, he would have brought great suffering to all. Prince Yanxi shook his head in disbelief.
It's fortunate Captain Wenshi and you put an end to this.
What of the governor's pendant? Li Wei asked. Destroyed. I recalled the arrow I had ripped from my hand, used to shatter the stone. Li Wei sighed. It's a relief that such a dangerous artifact is gone, that it can never be used again. But I can't help wishing we had the chance to study it. We know so little of this magic, I fear it's to our disadvantage. We must know what we contend against. I understood his meaning, and yet I was glad to never see that accursed pendant again.
What of those who served Governor Renyu? Those who attacked us? Will they be brought to justice?
Wenshi asked, with an edge to his tone. Did he recall the Celestials who were slain in the battle? I could not forget his anguish as he saw them fall. Justice will be served as the Eastern Sea decides, Li Wei said grimly. Though it would appear both sides were deceived by the governor.
Your Highness, regardless of their excuses, the merfolk rebelled against their sovereign. Your own father believes such matters should be dealt with harshly, so none will attempt it again.
Wenshi's lips curved into a mocking smile. Did he enjoy baiting Li Wei? He certainly seemed to care little for the prince's favor. I said to Wenshi, I felt the power of the enchantment. I almost fell under its sway. It might just as easily have been me under its spell. He did not reply, yet his jaw clenched as though he was stricken by my words.
Many of the merfolk appeared dazed, unsure why they had revolted, Prince Yanxi told us. We will investigate further to determine their innocence. Those found blameless will be released under watch at first. Some will be invited to remain at our court as the intermediaries between us and the merfolk. Closer ties will prevent this from happening again.
The merfolk would not have fared so well under the Celestial Emperor's justice. Your father and you are indeed wise and merciful, I said, without intent to flatter. Before he could reply, footsteps pattered across the floor as a pair of small arms was flung around my waist. Swinging around, I lifted Prince Yanming into the air, ignoring the ache in my body as he whooped in delight. When I set him down again, his expression grew solemn. The corners of his mouth turned down. You did not follow us. You lied. His tone was accusing. Guilt pricked me. I crouched down, staring into his face. I'm sorry. I couldn't go with you then, but I should not have said I would. I am glad you didn't die, and thank you. He held out his hand to me. Nestled in his palm was a small dragon, exquisitely crafted from red paper. I picked it up, holding it between my thumb and finger, afraid to crush the delicate paper. Thank you. I'll cherish this always. His lower lip wobbled. May the dragons protect you on your journey. He dashed the back of his hand over his eyes as he turned and ran away. I watched until his little figure disappeared, a thickness forming in my throat.
Wherever you go, you'll always have a place here, whether in our court or as our friend.
Prince Yanxi spoke in earnest, and something eased deep inside me at the thought of having another home in this world. Prince Yanxi, it's time we left, Li Wei said in glacial tones.
Thank you for your hospitality, Your Highness,
Wenshi spoke with equally cold formality. The palpable shift in their attitude was both puzzling and unprovoked, and the way they were looking at Prince Yanxi was decidedly unfriendly. I shook my head to banish these thoughts, wondering if I had imagined it. Fortunately, Prince Yanxi seemed oblivious to the sudden chill,
a smile playing on his lips as he said, "We thank the Celestial Kingdom for coming to our aid." 22. After the Eastern Sea, Wenxia and I went from one campaign to the next, at times not returning to the Celestial Kingdom for months at a stretch. We fought terrifying monsters, ravenous beasts, and, most recently, the fearsome spirits that plagued the eastern border, close to the forests of the Phoenix Kingdom. I was exhausted when we finally arrived at the Jade Palace, eager to retire to my room. Yet, when news reached me that Xu Xiao had been awarded a promotion, I set off in search of her at once. I knocked on her door, expecting to find her celebrating with friends. But when she opened it, her smile lacked her usual warmth. She seemed a pale copy of herself. A solitary lamp lit the dark, and there was a porcelain jar of wine on the table. "Is this how you're celebrating? Drinking by yourself?" I shook my head in mock disbelief as I entered and sank upon a stool. "Aren't you glad that I came by?" "More than you know." She tugged off the red cloth stopper from the wine jar and poured me a cup. I lifted it in a toast. "Lieutenant Xu Xiao, may this just be the beginning." She drained her cup in a single gulp. I stared at her, my hand frozen midair. Xu Xiao was usually a restrained drinker, but maybe this was a special occasion. When I refilled her cup, she emptied it again. Shrugging, I decided to accompany her. We drank in companionable silence until a flush bloomed in our cheeks, the sweet scent of osmanthus infused our breaths, and the lamp took on a hazy glow. Yet Xu Xiao's eyes remained blank, as though her mind was far away, and not someplace pleasant either. "What's the matter?" I finally asked, unable to restrain myself. "Is it your family? Bad news?" Her fingers clenched around the cup. "I want to go home." Simple words which struck me deep, which had echoed in my mind each day and night. I knew Xu Xiao missed her family. She spoke of them with such longing, but she was a celestial, and I had thought she was happy here, that she had chosen this path. "Isn't this your home? Don't you want to be here?" I asked tentatively, wondering if the wine had dulled my mind. "No. Home is south in the countryside, shaded by crabapple trees, a river cutting through the fields." A small smile played on her lips. "My father never sought a place at court or the emperor's favor. While our family is not weak, we are without allies. It would not have mattered if a powerful noble had not taken a liking to my younger sister. He approached my father asking for her to be his concubine. An insult. Even if he wasn't both lecherous and ancient, with over a dozen concubines and 3 wives. Such things were common among the nobility, yet the idea repelled me. How could love thrive in so unequal a circumstance? My sister refused the match. My father supported her, as not many would have done. The old goat was furious that we spurned the great honor, she snarled. He threatened my family with ruin, that he would blacken our reputation to the celestial court, who would defend us when none knew our name. "Is that why you joined the army?" She nodded. "To stop the threats and bullying. To prevent this from happening again. Few would dare malign us without proof, now I have General Jianyun's ear. But this is not the life I wanted among the crowds of the Jade Palace. I want to be home with my family and friends, maybe fall in love. Yet the higher I rise, the more I am bound, the more we have to lose." Grabbing the jar, she emptied the last of it into her cup, some of the wine sloshing onto the table. I did not know what to say. Perhaps I was failing her through my continued silence, but neither did I wish to give misguided advice. I had always thought Xu Xiao thrived here, liked by commanders and soldiers alike. Perhaps it was as Li Wei had said. Everyone has their own troubles. Some lay them bare, while others hide them better. I could not tell her to follow her heart. I could not tell her to be selfish. This was her choice to make, though I would gladly support her however she decided. We each had our own burdens to bear, and we alone knew their true cost and whether we could pay it. "Maybe you'll find someone here?"
I teased, trying to lighten her mood. Her nose wrinkled. Ha! You've got the best one. Best male one, at least. She rummaged in the chest behind her to pull out another jar of wine. Did she mean Wenxia? Heat prickled along my neck, yet I held my tongue, feigning indifference. After a pause, she nudged my arm. Xingyan, there's something I've wanted to ask you for a while now. I took a long drink, letting the wine burn through the sudden tightness in my throat. Did she suspect anything of my family? My identity? She would not betray my confidence, but I could not risk a chance indiscretion. What's that ornament you always wear by your waist? The one with the teardrop-shaped stone. I've seen it on Prince Liwei, too. I released a drawn-out breath, relieved that my mother's secret was safe, even as my insides clenched with a new anxiety. My past with Liwei was another secret buried deep, but I would not lie to Shu Xiao, not for this. It was a gift. From Prince Liwei. I hated the way my voice shook over his name. As her lips stretched in a knowing grin, I added hastily, It was nothing, just a token of friendship. He's engaged. A statement as obvious as the color of my hair. She squinted, as though struggling to remember something in her befuddled state. Prince Liwei is never without the tassel, and his attendants say that your song, the one you played at his banquet, is often heard drifting from his room. He kept the shell? Still? It means nothing. It changes nothing, a voice inside me hissed. My fingers toyed with my cup. This time, it was I who drained it first. I didn't think you listened to idle gossip, I told her. Only when it concerns my friends, she said with a grin. I did not speak again, and neither did she. So we drank in companionable silence for the rest of the night, the air between us heavy with past remembrances. My head throbbed mercilessly the next morning. I thought a walk would ease it, but my feet led me back to a familiar courtyard. I hesitated before entering the pavilion and sitting on a stool. Yellow and orange carp darted around the lotus blooms as the waterfall cascaded into the pond with a soothing rumble. I closed my eyes, inhaling the sweetness in the air. My old room was a few steps away. Was it occupied by another? This was my first time entering the courtyard of eternal tranquility since I had left. It was just as I remembered, yet everything had changed. A girl passing through the courtyard halted and bowed to me. In her hands was a tray of pastries, the kind which flaked and crumbled when you bit into them to get to the sweet bean filling. When she looked up, I recognized her at once. Minyi, it's me, I laughed. Why are you being so formal? 2 dimples appeared in her round cheeks. Who hasn't heard of the first archer's accomplishments over the past year? She said, coming to sit beside me. Did you really strike down 20 spirits during your last battle? My lips twitched, remembering her fondness for gossip. 12. They fly fast. What of the bone devil? What did it look like? I shuddered at the remembrance of the malevolent creature that had broken free from the celestial prison. Hair and pupils so pale they were almost translucent. Powdery skin stretched as taut as a drum. She clutched my sleeve. How did you kill it? A memory flashed across my mind. Wenxia's sword arcing through the air, sinking into the creature's neck. Its jaws, crammed with silver needles for teeth, had snapped at him viciously. As Wenxia evaded its attack, the monster's claws flashed above his neck toward the throbbing vein where his lifeblood flowed. Gripped by fear, I had released an arrow that plunged into its skull. Thick white liquid oozed from the wound, a piercing shriek stabbing the air. Its claws had clutched the shaft once before they fell away, as it collapsed onto the ground. Gone were those days when my heart had twinged with pity, though their faces haunted me still. Captain Wenxia and I fought it together, I told her. At the mention of his name, Minyi sat straighter, her eyes brightening as whenever she scented a new tale. To forestall her next question, I hastily asked, What news do you have of the palace? How is His Highness? Too late did I bite my tongue. Last night's wine must have addled my senses to have spoken of him aloud. Someone approached from behind me. Had the roar from the waterfall muffled the footsteps? A throat was cleared, and just from that sound I could tell who he was before I turned. Beside me, Min Yi leapt to her feet and bowed. Without another word, she grabbed her tray and hurried away, leaving me alone with the intruder. Except he was no intruder. He had every right to be here. It was I who did not belong. "Please forgive the trespass, Your Highness. I will leave at once." Formality was a shield I clung to against my own weakness. "Why don't you ask me how I am yourself?" There was a warmth to his tone which I had not heard for a long time. I would have left then, but he moved into my path. As I looked up at him, I could not deny it was there still. That ache in my heart, that thread which tugged at it whenever he was near, no matter how I wished it did not. A soft breeze blew through the courtyard, sweeping a lock of my hair against his cheek. He caught it between his fingers, his eyes as inscrutable as pools of night. "Have you been well?" he asked. "Yes." "Why are you here?" "Curiosity. I wanted to meet my replacement," I said with a flippancy which fell flat. "Who could have taken your place?" His tone, his words affected me still, but I wrenched myself away to leave. "Are we not friends anymore? Since the Eastern Sea, I've seen you less than a handful of times, and each time you run away." He gestured toward the stools. "Why don't you sit down? Let's talk as we used to. Unless you're afraid?" A note of challenge rang in his voice. My sense warred with my pride. The latter one as I sat back down, goaded by his taunt. "I can't stay long. My training—" "Yes, the valiant first archer," he interjected cuttingly. "Who else would protect the Celestial Kingdom? Still, first archer after all your accomplishments, though. An honorable title, but without rank or power. Why not seek a command of your own, instead of trailing in Captain Wensh's shadow?" I clenched my teeth. "That's my choice. I want the freedom to take on the campaigns I wish. I have no desire to climb higher for ambition's sake alone." He stared at me like he was searching for something. "Or is there more behind your relationship? There are many rumors about the young captain and the gifted archer he favors. The two brightest stars in the Celestial Army. It's fortunate you don't have an official position in the army. Otherwise, this would be most improper." His accusation stung. "How dare you speak to me of what's improper, when it's you who is betrothed, yet baiting me this way? You have no right to ask such things of me. It's no business of yours what I do and who I see. As for me, I couldn't be more indifferent to you now." Such reckless words I spoke, uncaring of the storm which swept over his face. Yet I would not stay to be berated by him. I'd had enough of such entanglements and the way they twisted me into knots. Rising to my feet, I stalked away, but he caught my wrist in his grip. "I do care," he ground out. "Despite my sense, my judgment, and honor, I cannot help but care." Light blazed from his eyes, as scorching as the sun. Pinned by his gaze, I could not move, only noticing too late when he drew me to him. I should have pushed him away, yet there was no strength in my limbs. His confession roused something in me which I had thought long dead. I had never seen this side of him before, filled with passion and jealousy, and a reckless part of me reveled in it. He bent his head, slowly at first, and when I did not flee, his hand loosened over my wrist, gliding up to encircle my waist. Something smoked in the depths of his eyes. A moment before, his lips pressed against mine with a hunger as though he was starved, with an urgency that stirred my blood. There were no thoughts in my mind, no anger, no shame, no fear of what this meant. Nothing beyond this heady lightness, this glittering fire that coursed through my veins. My fingers were already winding around his neck to pull him closer as I tipped my head back, drowning in the sensation of his touch and warmth, even as his arms tightened around me, locking me into an embrace from which I no longer wanted to escape. This courtyard, it had been my haven once, The soothing thrum of the waterfall, the fragrance of spring blossoms in the air, the joy I had known here. Yet, while the aching familiarity of this place brought back such sweet memories, the one seared deepest in my mind was when I had sat frozen and alone the night of his betrothal. With a wrench, I shoved him away, hard, as he staggered back, his arms falling away. I fought for breath, struggling to gather the shreds of my composure. No, Li Wei. It is over. We are over. He ran a hand through his hair, his chest rising and falling in an uneven rhythm. Let us not lie to each other, Xingyin. We are not over. Your heart still beats to mine. You still feel something for me, just as I do for you. He spoke quietly with no trace of pride, just a certainty which was 100 times more galling. What do you want of me? I cried out, furious both at him and myself. You are promised to another, yet you seem intent on humbling me to admit my feelings. Does it give you satisfaction? Would it appease your royal pride to hear you were not so easily forgotten? Or do you intend to follow in your father's steps, with a concubine in every corner of the palace? Never that. He recoiled, as though insulted. I did not believe those harsh accusations myself, but a part of me, a bitter, vengeful part, wanted to strike out at him, to wound him as he had me. We glared at each other, neither of us speaking, my heart pounding so hard I prayed he could not hear it. At last he turned away, his hands clenched by his sides. I don't know what I'm doing, he said in a low voice, akin to a reluctant confession. My mind tells me to stop, to let you go. Yet I can't. I see you wherever I go. You're with me in everything I do. At my table while I eat, in my room when I awaken. Your voice in the air, your smile in my eyes. I can't forget you, no matter how I've tried. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. How weak I was that I did not leave now, that his confession moved me so. I did not know how long we would have stood there, as still as the stone lions which guarded the entrance, if the doors to the courtyard had not been thrown open. I stepped away from Li Wei just in time as a messenger ran toward him. His black hat had been knocked askew, and his robe flapped in the wind. He bowed, panting a little as he spoke to Li Wei. Your Highness, their celestial majesties request your immediate presence in the Hall of Eastern Light. An urgent matter requires your attention. Li Wei frowned. I'll go at once. He glanced at me as though wanting to say more, but then he strode away. I fled back to my room, trying to settle my churning emotions. Yet they were roused anew at the sight of Wenshi sitting by the table. Weren't you with General Jianyan this morning? I asked, taking the stool beside him. Our meeting ended early. He sounded strained, hesitant, which was most unlike him. Xingyin, there is something I must tell you. I clasped my hands in my lap, a chill spreading through me in anticipation of ill tidings. He leaned toward me, his voice rough with sudden emotion. I've resigned from the Celestial Army. This week will be my last. I have important family matters to attend to, far from here, and I don't expect to return. He spoke with deliberate measure, as though wanting to be sure I grasped his meaning. You're leaving? To the Western Sea? I managed to ask. A terse nod. My final assignment will be to inspect the troops at the border of the Golden Desert. They've been unsettled of late. My chest was so tight I found it hard to breathe. Since the Eastern Sea, something had changed between us. My heart beat quicker at the sight of him, and his smile warmed me like wine. Sometimes I thought I caught a kindling in his eyes as he looked at me. We were circumspect in our interactions, never a touch or word beyond the bounds of propriety. Yet we had become more than friends, on the cusp of something entirely new and thrilling. Or had all this been my own delusions? I dropped my gaze to the floor, feeling oddly dismayed, disappointed, hurt even, though I had no right to be, guilt stabbing me at the memory of Li Wei's lips on mine. Wenshi was staring at me as though waiting for my response to a question I had not heard. his voice finally infiltrating the haze of my misery.
Will you come with me?
To the border of the Golden Desert? I stammered.
That too, if you wish, he said gravely. I meant, would you come with me when I leave?
My tongue darted over my dry lips. What do you mean? I dared not mistake his intent. A smile lit his face. It lit the very room.
Don't you know how I feel about you?
His voice shook, the first crack in his iron composure.
I could not speak before, but I'm free to now. I want you to come with me, to my home, to my family, for us to share our lives together.
He lowered his head to mine, our brows almost touching, his breath warm on my skin.
Your dreams will be my dreams too.
Joy coursed through me like the ripples on a pond after a burst of rain. I had thought I was done with love, its breathtaking beauty, its tumultuous agony. I had been happy before and believed I would be content again once I made my way home, to my true home, not this one here built upon a web of lies. Now a future with Chang'e beckoned, with clear skies and not a dark cloud on the horizon. One with no broken hearts or past entanglements, one where blood had not been spilled between our kin, our ties unsullied by hatred or past grudges, where I could be whole and free from guilt, remorse, and sorrow. Only now did I dare to admit to myself my fear that I had failed, that, in my arrogance, I had miscalculated the worth of my talent, the value of my deeds. For despite my service to the Celestial Army, my hope of winning my mother's freedom was fading away like a silk painting left out too long in the sun. A pardon from the Emperor was the surest way to securing her release. However, while my accomplishments had earned praise and gifts, which I declined, not even a whisper of the Crimson Lion talisman had ever been uttered. I should have heeded General Jianyun's warning. Yet in my pride, I believed I knew better. The Emperor was not known for his generosity in dispensing such favors, nor had anyone sentenced to eternal imprisonment ever been pardoned. So perhaps it was time to seek a new path to help my mother. Perhaps I would find the way in Wen's homeland, in the Western Sea. Wen's hand on my arm startled me now. He was still waiting for my reply, perhaps wondering at my prolonged silence. As I stared into his strong, handsome face, something shifted in my chest. I cared for him, I know I did. My dismay at his leaving was proof of that. And was it not said that love would grow between well-matched minds over the months and years? We had eternity before us.
Is this what you want, too?
His tone was no longer uncertain, but brimming with newfound confidence, as though he had already sensed my answer. Yes, the word formed on my lips, and yet I could not say it. Something tugged at the edge of my heart, a small voice within pleading with me to reconsider. I would have asked him for more time then, except the crunch of gravel startled us. Someone was running toward my room with undue haste as Wen'e threw the doors apart. A young attendant halted in the entrance. "Captain Wen'e," he gasped, "I've been searching everywhere for you. Their Celestial Majesties have requested your immediate presence in the Hall of Eastern Light." How strange, I thought to myself. He was the second messenger I had seen today relaying pressing news. Wen'e's eyes flashed with annoyance.
"I'll come shortly."
The messenger shrank away but did not leave. His courage was commendable, particularly in light of Wen'e's evident displeasure. "All the other commanders have already gathered. I was instructed to accompany you there the moment I found you." Wen'e sighed as he drew me aside.
"Let's speak tomorrow."
He might have said more, but the messenger shuffled his feet, throwing a nervous glance at us. With an impatient shake of his head, Wen'e stalked away. Alone in my room, I sat by the table until the golden fire of the sun dwindled to a glowing ember. If not for my lapse of weakness this morning, I believed my heart whole, freed from the ties that had bound it. A glorious future beckoned on the horizon, yet I still clung to a shred of my past, as a flowering peach blossom tree, yearning for its fallen bloom. 23. Shu Xiao slipped into the chair across from me, setting her tray of food on the wooden table. Her eyes slid around the large dining hall, already crowded with soldiers hunched over their morning meal. "Princess Feng Mei has been abducted," she said in hushed tones. My spoon fell into my bowl, splattering kanji onto the table. How? When? By whom? The questions rolled off my tongue. This must be why Li Wei and Wenshe had been called away yesterday. All I heard is Prince Li Wei will be leading the rescue. Beneath the table, my hand gripped my knee. If not for yesterday, this news would not have affected me so. Yet he had kissed me as though I was the only one in his heart. Such tender words he had spoken, and now he was risking himself to save his betrothed? An engagement he claimed he had not wanted? A cold, prickling sensation slithered tight around my chest. I breathed in and then out, trying to unravel its hold. I was behaving like a selfish child. As her betrothed and ally, who else but he should go? I wish him every success. I hope he brings her back safely. If my words came out a little hollow, I was at least glad that I meant them. To spirit the princess away is no easy feat. I wonder who... Shu Xiao's voice cut off abruptly. General Chang'e stood before us with his arms folded. We leapt up at once to greet him. "Lieutenant Shu Xiao, I don't need to know where you heard this from, but I want an end to this discussion or any other regarding this matter. Is that clear?" he commanded. She shot me a panicked look before replying with uncharacteristic meekness, "Yes, General Chang'e." He glanced at me then. "First Archer, Xingyin. Follow me. I must speak with you." I stared at him in surprise until Shu Xiao kicked me under the table, the pain breaking my days as I hastened after him. "The news is true," he said without preamble as he sat behind his rosewood desk. "Queen Fengjian is distraught. The abductor sent terms demanding that she break off the alliance with us, warning that her daughter would be shown no mercy should any attempt be made to rescue her, which is why it falls upon us to save her." "Was it the demon realm?" I asked. "We suspect so, though we have no evidence. Regardless, our priority is to retrieve Princess Feng Mei safely. His Highness will lead a small team to rescue her, no more than a dozen soldiers to avoid detection. Given the threat, discretion is crucial to not jeopardize the princess's safety." He tapped the table in a steady rhythm. "Prince Li Wei has requested that you join the rescue." I could not have been more astonished if a bolt of lightning had struck me from the cloudless sky. At a loss for words, I struggled against the emotions that swelled within, tangling and twisting, burning yet cold. But one thing was clear. I did not want to do this. His expression darkened, perhaps reading the refusal in my face. "Well, I cannot command you to do this. I strongly urge you to, for the kingdom, our alliance. Nothing matters more." His argument did not sway me. I was neither so noble nor valiant. It was not the physical danger which repelled me, but the hurt to my heart and pride. This was not worth the rewards the Celestial Kingdom had to offer, those I had already declined. "There are many others more suitable, more skilled than me," I said. "With the bow?" It was Li Wei who spoke from where he stood in the doorway. I had not heard him arrive. As General Chang'e rose to greet him, I followed suit, quelling the leap in my chest. I would not linger on what had happened between us. It was no more than a momentary lapse. Perhaps being in the courtyard of eternal tranquility had clouded our minds with memories, and now we were plunged deeper into a new reality, one where Li Wei and I would drift further apart until we could never find our way back to each other again. "With your Highness himself leading the rescue, surely you have all the skills you need." This was what a courtier might say, hoping to flatter the prince, if not for the edge in my tone. Li Wei crossed the room to stand before me. "Not all. You surpassed me in archery a long time ago, as we both know." When I did not reply, he took one of the chairs opposite General Chang'e and motioned for me to do the same. I sat stiffly beside him, wishing I were anywhere but here. "Continue, General Chang'e," Li Wei said.
We believe Princess Fengmei is being held in the Eternal Spring Forest, close to the mountains south of the Phoenix Kingdom. That was the last trace we had of her."
The name struck a chord in me. Was that the home of Lady Hualing, the previous flower immortal? Before she disappeared? He nodded grimly.
"Since then, the forest has been veiled from sight by a strange magic. No one has ventured there for centuries. We don't know what other dangers lurk there in addition to the hostile forces holding the princess. Stealth and subterfuge will be crucial, as will your skills."
General Chang'e expected me to accept with grace. I would not. Some might think me unkind, but I could not so easily cast my feelings aside. My own desires mattered too. Guilt pricked me at the thought of Princess Fengmei's peril, but I was not so arrogant to imagine I was the only one who could perform this task. I stood, raising my cupped hands and bowing from my waist. "General Chang'e, you promised that I would have the freedom to choose my assignments. I refuse this one." He scowled, his mouth opening to rebuke me, but Li Wei interjected,
"May I speak with Xingyan? Alone?"
The general threw a forbidding look my way before bowing to Li Wei and leaving the room.
"Would you like to sit?"
Li Wei asked after a moment's silence. "I prefer to stand." I was eager to leave at the first opportunity, determined to avoid any further intimacy with him. He sighed as he rose to join me. Part of me cringed from the absurdity of our situation. Only yesterday he had pulled me into his arms with such passion, and now he was asking me to rescue his betrothed. Anger flared in me, hot and fierce. "Do you care so little for my feelings?" I could not help asking, hating myself for it too.
"I must do this," he said. "If we fail, if any harm befalls Princess Fengmei, not only would it be a great tragedy, but it would tilt the Phoenix Kingdom toward the demon realm, strengthening them and weakening us immensely. With this advantage, the demon realm would be tempted to break the peace, to go to war with us again."
"I understand, but why do I need to go with you? There are countless competent warriors you could choose from who would be honored to accompany you."
"Because there's no one I trust more than you."
His eyes held mine.
"Too many things have been happening of late. Fox spirits coming through our wards, Archer Fei Mao's affliction, and now this. The princess was taken on her way to the Celestial Kingdom. Only those in the inner circles of our courts knew of this trip, which means there is a traitor either in the Phoenix Kingdom or here," he concluded gravely. "I meant what I said about your skill. This will be dangerous and we'll need every advantage we can gather."
When I did not reply, he added in a low voice,
"I'm placing you in an impossible situation. You must hate me."
My head pounded beneath the weight of my indecision. To be tasked with saving Li Wei's betrothed both unsettled and hurt me. I wanted her to be rescued, but I also wanted no part of it. And a small voice inside me whispered that if the Celestial Kingdom should fall, perhaps my mother would be free. I flinched from the vile thought. I had friends here whom I cared for, who would suffer if it came to war. And what if the demon realm ascended to supremacy? While I no longer believed them to be the monsters I had dreaded, neither did I trust their king, who seemed as ruthless as the Celestial Emperor, particularly if he had kidnapped Princess Fengmei to force the queen's capitulation. Dare I lay our fates in such hands? If I had learned anything over these years, it was that no one won in a war, not even those who thought they did. Princess Fengmei's face flashed through my mind now, not the royal wearing the golden cloak of feathers I saw from afar, but the girl I had met in Li Wei's courtyard. Could I not treat this as any other task I had accepted before? If not for our past, I would have leapt at this chance to aid the Celestial Crown Prince and the Phoenix Princess. It was a rare opportunity, one which would undoubtedly gain the Emperor's attention, possibly bringing me within reach of the Crimson Lion Talisman and averting a disastrous war. And beyond that, could I truly refuse to help Li Wei? No matter what, he was still my friend. 100 considerations twisted and wound through me, now all tugging me in the same direction. I would go with Li Wei. not from duty or obligation, but to protect him, my friend, and those I cared for in the celestial kingdom, to help save the innocent girl I had spoken with. And if this did not win His Celestial Majesty's favor and the talisman I craved, nothing ever would. This would be my final step along this path before I began anew, and I would leave with a cleared conscience. I met his gaze. "I'll go with you."
"Thank you."
As he took a step toward me, I moved away. "I'll go with you," I repeated. "However, I ask that you conduct yourself within the bounds of propriety from now, as though our past does not exist." These cold words stung me too, but I could not allow another moment of weakness to muddle my resolve.
"What if you're improper toward me?"
A shadow of a smile formed on his lips. How easily he slipped back into being my teasing friend of the past. But I could not allow even that. "We cannot continue this way," I said in a low voice, trying to stifle the lingering desire which slid into me at his nearness, the guilt and shame that burned a hole in my stomach. "I will help you and Princess Fengmei, but you have your honor and I have mine, and there is none to be found in what we did. You are betrothed now, your heart is hers." The memory of our kiss flitted through me unbidden. Our last, I told myself fiercely. A door closed, a final farewell. His face was ash and shadow, his eyes stripped of light. It was then I knew I had done it, severed the last frayed thread of our bond. He was silent as he inclined his head to me, before walking away. I did not look up, not wanting to see him leave. My words had struck true. A fatal blow, a swift death. Yet it was a hollow triumph, leaving a bitterness in my mouth and a clawing ache in my chest. Sleep evaded me that night. Plagued by restlessness, I clambered up the pillars outside my room. A gentle breeze stirred the air as I sat on the cold jade roof tiles, staring at the sky. The moon shone down through the darkness, its light gentle and soft. Something rustled, Wenshi pulling himself over the ledge. He flicked his outer robe aside as he sank down beside me.
"I waited for you today."
"I'm sorry, today was eventful." I hated the way my words stumbled as though I had something to hide. "Oh, you do," my mind whispered. "I can't go with you to the border," I told him. His jaw tightened, yet he showed no surprise. Had he already been briefed by General Jianyan?
"Don't go with Prince Liwei."
He spoke with sudden urgency.
"It's too dangerous. Immortals shun the eternal spring forest for good reason. Since Lady Hualing's disappearance, rumors abound of the place, of dark enchantments and hostile creatures, of misery and death."
I shrugged with an indifference I did not feel. "I've faced monsters, by your side no less." His sigh misted the cool air.
"Don't you have any regard for your own safety?"
I frowned, a little surprised by his insistence. "How is this more dangerous than Xiangliu, Governor Renyu, or the Bone Devil?" I rattled off, trying to ease his concern.
"Because I won't be there. What if something happened to you?"
He paused.
"Don't you care how I feel?"
His concern touched me, though I would not be swayed. "I do, but I can take care of myself. Regardless, it's been decided. We leave tomorrow."
"Why do this?" he demanded. "It doesn't matter what General Jianyan commands when we'll soon leave this place. Why endanger yourself needlessly? Surely it's not out of loyalty to the Celestial Kingdom."
I pulled my back straight, needled by his words. I could protect myself. In the past, I had come to his aid as often as he came to mine, and his taunt that I bore no loyalty to the Celestial Kingdom? I needed no reminder for that. I served here because I had believed this would lead to my mother's freedom. The training I received, the reputation I built, the lives I took, all this was a means to an end, as had been my entire time here. Yet I heard, too, the worry which wrenched his voice. I tried to explain. "I'm not doing this because I was commanded to. Prince Liwei asked me to help him. I could not refuse."
Wenx's face darkened. Are you still in love with him? Is that why you're risking your life to save someone you care nothing for? Have you forgotten that he left you for another? His harsh words lashed out like a whip. I stared at him, anger searing my veins. He knew nothing of Li Wei and me. More than our doomed love, Li Wei was my friend. My only friend when I had none, and those roots went far deeper than my disappointment and hurt. His kindness to me was a debt I owed him, one I would repay. How can you say that to me? I seethed. I'm no lovesick puppet begging for a morsel of affection. I have my own dreams, my own principles, my own honor to uphold. In no mood to explain myself further, I scrambled to my feet to leave. Wait, Xingyan! His tone was cracked by a note of despair. I halted, but did not turn. He spoke so quietly that I strained to hear. I'm sorry. I should not have said that. I was disappointed and jealous. He exhaled deeply. I thought we had come to an understanding yesterday. Was I wrong? Did you not grasp my meaning then? My hopes for our future? My heart softened, despite the anger which simmered in me still. All Wenxi had seen was my despair over Li Wei's engagement, and it was little wonder that he was resentful now. A hard confession for him to make, though it did not give him the right to speak to me so. I swung around, holding his gaze. Wenxi, you must trust in my judgment as I do in yours. Do not try to insult or guilt me into doing what you think I should do. How will we have a future together if you do not see me as your equal? You are my equal. More than my equal. Wenxi pushed himself to his feet, clasping my hand in his strong grip. I just don't want you to be hurt. The wind grew stronger, blowing my hair across my cheek. As I shivered, Wenxi slid off his outer coat, draping it over my shoulders as his arm pulled me close. Promise me you'll keep yourself safe, that you won't do anything too reckless, he whispered into my ear. An urge to laugh rippled through me, dispersing my ire. He knew me well to say such a thing, and I knew him well enough to sense how he restrained himself from saying more. The fresh scent of pine needles wafted in the air, kindling a light in my heart which banished the lingering shadows. My feelings for Wenxi were strong, though different from mine with Li Wei before. Perhaps the blazing, all-consuming passion I had known with Li Wei was the headiness of a first love, suffused with the foolish innocence that nothing could tear us apart. For those that came after, one tread a little slower, a little warier, after hearts had been bruised and promises broken. And perhaps the growing warmth of my feelings for Wenxi was what all love evolved to. I rested my head against his shoulder, the last of my tension easing away. I promise. And when I return, we'll leave this place together. We stood there in silence, his arm tightening around me, the only sign he had heard my answer. For the first time today, I was at peace. An urge gripped me to spill my secrets to him. But not tonight. Not here. In the celestial kingdom, my guard was always up. One day, when we were far from this place, I would tell him of my mother. How dark the night that stretched before us. Yet ablaze with the light of the moon and stars, it felt as bright as day. 24. The eternal spring forest had been the most beautiful place in the immortal realm. It was said the celestial emperor himself had planted this forest in his youth, with branches cut from the first tree of the world, sprinkled with the dew from an enchanted lotus. Beneath the graceful canopy of towering trees were crystal-clear ponds and silvery rivers gleaming with fish. Those who wandered to the heart of the forest spoke, enthralled, of trees in eternal bloom, their branches laden with flowers in all colors. Ripe fruits, sweeter than nectar, grew as abundantly as the wildflowers amid the soft grass. The idyllic perfection of the forest had attracted birds, beasts, and immortals. Even the powerful Lady Hualing, the first flower immortal, had been enchanted by this place.
leaving the celestial kingdom to make her home here, peonies, camellias, and azaleas blossoming in her wake. But this paradise did not last. After Lady Hualing had been stripped of her position, no longer did she raise her hand to plant the flowers. No longer did she revive the faded blooms. And after she had disappeared, the lush canopies browned, the shimmering ponds dried into pools of sinking mud, and the trees withered, never to bloom again. I stepped off my cloud, struck by the deep silence of this place. Not a chirp from a single bird, not even the flutter of a dragonfly's wings. A white fog shrouded the forest, glazed with an unwelcome chill. The trees stood tall and straight, their shriveled leaves clinging to the branches in eternal death. Scattered around were murky pools, which we steered clear of to avoid being sucked into their bottomless depths. The stagnant air reeked of decay, a sad mockery of the promise in the forest's name. As we walked deeper through shadow and mist, my skin crawled as my fingers tightened around the phoenix fire bow. If only I could have brought the jade dragon bow along, as skyfire was more powerful than flame. But I was unsure if I could wield it, having never released its arrow before, and I feared, too, using the bow in front of celestial soldiers who might claim it on the Emperor's behalf. 2 soldiers ran ahead to scout the way, while the other 8 remained. "It's no use to summon a cloud here," Li Wei explained. "The fog is too dense, and some enchantment keeps it in place." "Can't we dispel it?" "It's not a simple spell. Besides, the fog conceals our trail for now, and we don't want to alert anyone to our presence." "How will we find Princess Feng Mei, even with the scouts?" I asked. "I can sense her aura, though I need to get close enough," he said. His revelation pricked me. Was he more intimate with the princess than I had imagined? I reminded myself to avoid speaking to him, to forestall my mind spiraling into such depths. However, he had no such qualms. "Captain Wenjie will be leaving the Celestial Kingdom soon. What will you do then?" While his manner was conversational, pleasant even, my reply stuck in my throat. He continued in that low and earnest voice. "My feelings for you remain unchanged, but I will speak of them no more. What you said yesterday, what you asked of me, you were right." I nodded woodenly, thinking if that was true, what was this stifling heaviness which sank over me now? I clenched my hands, furious with myself. How could I still be stirred by Li Wei despite my feelings for Wenjie? Was I so fickle and inconstant? My future with Wenjie was bright with hope, not mired in past regret, and I would not discard this chance at happiness. Footsteps padded toward us, cautious and soft. I glanced up to find one of the scouts approaching. "Your Highness, there are soldiers about 500 paces ahead, armed and guarding a pagoda." "Proceed with caution. They must not know we're here," Li Wei warned. We drew our weapons, making our way stealthily onward. In the clearing before us, the pagoda loomed, 8 stories high, almost as tall as the surrounding trees. The tiered towers were of crumbling wood. Its latticed windows and ornamental eaves faded from what might have once been a brilliant red. How seamlessly it blended into the blighted landscape, a dilapidated blur of browns and grays. How desolate it appeared, despite the dozen soldiers surrounding it, clad in burnished bronze armor. "Do you recognize the armor?" I asked. "No, but that can be easily disguised." Li Wei closed his eyes for a moment, his brow creasing. "Princess Feng Mei is inside, I can sense her. We must take the guards out quietly, to avoid raising the alarm." He addressed us all in hushed tones. "Start with those closest to us, working our way to the pagoda. We must be quick to avoid them crying out, else the princess will be in danger." At Li Wei's signal, I released a flaming arrow which sank into the chest of the nearest guard. As a choked gurgle rolled from her throat, I shot the one beside her, his eyes bulging as he crumpled to the ground. Li Wei and his warriors moved swiftly to surround the remaining soldiers, striking them down to an ominous chorus of strangled gasps and whispered screams. The skirmish was over. Sweat beaded my brow despite the chill that shrouded my skin. It had been easy. Too easy. Li Wei's gaze swung to mine, echoing my unspoken suspicion. "The pagoda," he said.
There might be more guards there." A roar erupted from the forest, drowning the rest of his words. A stream of enemies swarmed toward us, the sunlight striking their bronze armor as they flooded the clearing. With a blow from his sword, Li Wei struck down 2 of them. I shot another who raced toward him, just as an enemy soldier slumped unconscious by my feet. In the tumult, I had not heard him. He might have caught me unaware had there not been that strange black feathered arrow protruding from his chest. I swung around to search for the archer, but Li Wei shouted, "Get the princess!" He raised his sword, blazing with flame as he swung it in a wide arc, throwing back the assailants who surrounded him. Their weapons glinted silver and gold, while some carried dark metal chains in their hands. The sight of them infuriated me, that they were so certain of taking him prisoner. The rest of his warriors were engaged in a furious battle around him, outnumbered yet holding their ground. We still had a chance, at least for now, if I found the princess in time. I wanted to stay and fight, but I raced into the pagoda, leaving the battle outside to Li Wei and the other Celestials. Fear sliced my heart, even as I reminded myself fervently of Li Wei's skill with the sword and his powerful magic. He could hold them at bay until I returned. The sooner I found Princess Feng Mei, the sooner we could all flee this accursed place. I sprinted up the wooden stairs, half expecting to be confronted by guards around every corner. Yet the place was oddly deserted as I reached the highest floor without encountering a single enemy. I wrenched open the thick wooden door at the top, but it held fast. Impatient now, I summoned a blast of air that shattered the lock. Princess Feng Mei leapt to her feet, amid the chunks of wood and splinters scattered on the floor. Her heart-shaped face was pale, and her brown eyes wide as she stared blankly at me, as though unsure whether to shriek in terror or weep with relief. Her head tilted to one side as she scrutinized me, perhaps trying to recall where we had met before. "I'm with the Celestial Army. We're here to rescue you. Quick! Prince Li Wei is under attack!" My voice pulsed with urgency. She brightened at the mention of Li Wei's name as she raised her wrists to me. They were bound with black metal manacles, joined by a thin chain. "Could you remove these?" I drew my sword and slammed it against the delicate chain. The blade rebounded, my arm throbbing from the effort, but not so much as a scratch appeared on the metal. Sawing away at the links did not work, nor did hammering at them make a dent. All the while, my mind raged with thoughts of Li Wei below, the arrows flying toward his unprotected back, the blades thrust at his chest. "Stand still!" I drew an arrow, releasing it at the manacle around her right hand. Crimson fire rippled across the metal, cracks appearing before they shattered. With my next breath, I shot another bolt at her left wrist, the second manacle falling away. Princess Feng Mei's lips curved into a trembling smile. You shoot very well," she said softly, brushing away the clouds of black hair which covered her face. Her delicate beauty sent a twinge through my heart. I swallowed hard, bending to toss away the broken links of metal around her feet. They stung like ice clinging to my skin. "What are these chains?" Her shoulders slumped. "I have no idea. When they put them on me, I couldn't draw my energy." My stomach churned violently. These chains. I had seen the soldiers below carrying them, and in the Eastern Sea, Li Wei had told me of the ore from Shadow Peak that could bind an immortal's power.